Use the breathing techniques I taught you. They will ease the pain. Let me tell you the story of the ink and of the champions who came before you. A merchant sold us a secret. Put the toxins in your skin, and you will gain great and strange powers.
Just 1 minute.
Those powers will drag you into madness. Enemies have found us. You must kill him before he can attack again.
That means I must give you the last mark.
He'll warp everything we stand for.
The time has come. We must act quickly. I foresaw this day would come. Welcome home.
Mark of the Ninja is a stealth platformer released on September 7th, 2012 on Xbox Live and October 12th for PC. It was created by Klei Entertainment, who, amongst other things, is most well known for their hit indie sensation Don't Starve and Don't Starve Together. Though a quick look through all their releases shows that the studio is extremely consistent at releasing games with some critical acclaim, with their reviews often referring to their game's unique art styles, snappy gameplay, and unique and fascinating world building. As one of their earlier games, how well does Mark of the Ninja hold up to these standards? Is this game worth playing well over a decade later? And most importantly, which ninja game gives us the best and most trustworthy waifu companion in our journey? Well, to find out, let's go to the ancient land of the weebs and see what this game is all about. Before we get too into the narrative or gameplay, I'd like to start this video by talking about my appreciation for this game's art style. It is absolutely gorgeous and does an excellent job standing out. I don't want it to sound like I'm bashing anything, because I'm not, but after the release of Shovel Knight in 2014, it felt like nearly every 2D indie game that came out after went for a pixelated art style. Don't get me wrong, many games that came out around and after that time look fantastic. It just sort of drained me to see what looked like nearly every indie game go for it. I understand pixel art is easier and cheaper to make, but I just found it to be a breath of fresh air to see a game released around the same time decide to go for a more hand-drawn art style, and for me personally, it really helps the game stand out among its contemporaries. Subscribe. I want to start this section off by stating that I am playing the remastered version of the game released in 2018. While I do own the base game from 2012, the remastered version is available on all modern consoles, looks nicer, and comes with a few more bells and whistles. To add on to my previous point with a 2D hand-drawn art style, this game does something no previous game I've ever covered on this channel has. It has foregone the inclusion of the third dimension. I am a firm believer that stealth as a genre is done much better in 3D. There's just something about that extra dimension that gives you more to work with, more opportunities for better level design, more interesting puzzles, more in general. That said, for being a 2D game, Mark of the Ninja absolutely makes the most out of what it has. There are many paths to go, and rarely, if ever, did I feel I had to solve issues a certain way. If you're willing to look, there is very often a hidden vent either on the ceiling, floor, or wall. The devs also made sure the guard placement never felt too unfair. If there was ever a ridiculous amount of guards somewhere, they made sure that there was a path you could take to avoid them. Just as important as the level design are the tools in which we are given to explore these areas throughout the game, and in my opinion, Mark of the Ninja does stumble a bit in this area. Not to say any of the tools are bad, oh no, they all have their uses, but not all tools are created equal. This also isn't helped that many of these tools aren't unlocked until later in the game, making it really difficult to experiment with the tools you're given. This is, of course, on top of the fact that many of these tools you have to buy, and you can only buy them once you've reached a certain point in the narrative. This makes it really easy to find one or two tools you really like and never want to switch off of them because you've used them for so many missions in a row and they've worked, so why bother? This also isn't helped by the fact you can only carry one tool of each category, meaning there is an opportunity cost to experimenting. Do you take a tool you're not sure if you'll like, or do you take the tool that you know you'll get use out of? Also going to go ahead and drop a real quick mention to the costumes here. With two exceptions, I never bothered with these. For the most part, I found the downsides too costly for the benefits they provide. side. One outfit I do think is fun requires you to play through the extra DLC mission automatically included with the remastered version in order to unlock. The other outfit you unlock near the end of the game, but more on both of those later. As for the actual tools, they are split into two separate categories. You have distraction items and attack items. From the names, it should be fairly obvious which items are useful for what, but I figured it'd make sense to go over each item individually, and to make things simple, I'm going to start things with distraction items and then move my way to attack items. Make sense? Okay, cool. Our very first item we're given is a firecracker called a noisemaker. If you need me to explain this one, then you throw the thing and it explodes, creating a distraction. If you upgrade it, you can make it explode later instead of instantly. It is a simple distraction tool and one that I honestly rarely used. Not to say it doesn't have uses, but there are better tools. And why use this when there are tools that can do what the noisemaker does plus other things? I only used it for the first mission because it was the only tool available, and then immediately never needed it again. The next tool in our arsenal is the ever reliable smoke bomb. This does what you expect it to do. You throw it and guards can't see through the smoke. However, what makes this such a useful tool is that it can block lasers. This can genuinely save you several minutes of puzzle solving or sneaking and absolutely breaks some levels. Okay, maybe break is a bit of an overstatement because this is very clearly intended, but you understand what I mean. It makes the game much easier and is by far the most useful tool in your arsenal. Next up, we have the distraction flare. It's just a worse smoke bomb. You throw it, it makes a big flash, and if someone has night vision, more on that later, they'll be blinded for a short period. It also doesn't help that it doesn't disable lasers like the smoke bomb, but it does draw on people like a noisemaker as a trade-off. Honestly, I only used this once just to get footage of it, then never again, because quite frankly, there was never a situation where there wasn't another distraction tool that was just as, if not more useful. The last distraction tool we'll be discussing for this section is the ever reliable cardboard box. It is, in fact, just a cardboard box, and it does exactly what you think it does. Yes, it is very cute. No, it is not ever worth taking over the smoke bomb. Another case of, I used it once to get footage, and then I never bothered using it again. There is technically one more distraction tool, but that's best saved for later when we discuss the DLC, as that's what unlocks it. To reiterate, none of these tools are outright bad. Underwhelming maybe, but they could have niche uses. The problem comes from opportunity cost and the fact you're only allowed to carry one per mission, or two if you're wearing a specialized costume. The smoke bomb is by far the best, most reliable option, and in 99% of cases, it's what you should carry. I can only think of a single circumstance where there was a tool that was better to carry than the smoke bomb, and even in that one scenario, there was a nearby checkpoint that allowed me to change items, complete the task I needed the other tool for, and come back to change to my usual equipment. I honestly don't understand what there was to gain by limiting which resources I'm allowed to take into a mission. The only thing I can maybe think of is replay value, but I honestly have no interest in seeing what X level would be like except I took Y tool instead of the usual ones I rely on. It honestly only detracts from the experience. I think the game would have been far better off allowing you to carry at least two of each kind of tool into a mission, even in the base outfit. For our other set of tools, the attack items, these are much more aggressive, as the name would imply, and are typically used in order to kill, or at the very least, disable a target. Our first item is the spike mine. Simple in concept, but fairly useful, especially early on when it is the only attack item you have. You place it on the ground, and if somebody steps on it, it sends a spike through their body, killing them instantly, with the added effect of terrifying anyone who happens to see it. I should explain that real quick. The terrify condition is something that can trigger through various different circumstances, such as hanging up this festive Halloween decoration. and this makes guards act irrationally, firing off their weapons randomly, potentially even killing their fellow guards, which, funnily enough, terrifies the original guard even more, causing them to fire more shots. It is honestly my favorite mechanic in the game. I absolutely love it. Back to the topic at hand, spike mines are fine for what they are, if a bit limited in their scope. They are, however, quickly overshadowed by our next tool, the Hisomi Terror Darts, referred to simply as Terror Darts from here on out. Terror Darts are my favorite weapon to use. As the name would imply, if you shoot one, you simply terrify a target. The reason I find this more useful than the spike mine, which can also terrify subjects, is twofold. Firstly, the primary use of this is to terrify, where the spike mine is to kill, and you may sometimes get someone terrified. It is much easier to get something out of terror when that is the primary goal. The darts are also quiet and have much more effective range than the mines. Where the terror darts really shine though is when you upgrade them. Once upgraded, any enemies terrorized by the darts will simply, commit Sudoku when the effect comes to an end.
Your life is nothing. You serve zero purpose. You should kill yourself now.
His tracks.
I don't know, maybe they saw your internet history, you freak. This also has the added bonus of causing terror to anyone who may witness it, though this is, in my opinion, a not too useful side effect. The reason I really enjoy this upgrade though is because it makes certain enemies that are typically impossible to actually kill just do the job themselves, on top of potentially terrorizing more guards in the process. It's a very fun tool to use. Next up, our final tool we'll be discussing for this section, we have ravenous insects. So, you know the rat power from Dishonored? It is literally just that. For the uninitiated, that essentially means that these insects are really good at eating away a corpse and hiding it away. They can also attack someone who isn't a corpse yet and not only make them become that, but also they don't become one of those because they just get eaten alive. It is actually really brutal, and I'm not sure which is worse, being eaten alive by insects or rats. Let me know your vote down in the comments. There's technically one more attack tool, but like with the distraction tool earlier, that is unlocked by doing the DLC, and I feel it is best saved for then. I feel like the selection of attack tools is better off than their distraction counterparts. While I didn't use the insects much, that is namely due to how late in the game they're unlocked. I could, however, see them being useful in a New Game Plus run, and the other two attack tools I found myself using frequently throughout my playthrough. Which leads me into my next point. If you're a longtime viewer, firstly, thank you. Your support means the world to me, especially with how horrible my upload schedule can be. Secondly, I typically play stealth games in a certain way. Usually I refer to this as Ghost Clean Hands, named after the achievements in Dishonored. There goes that name again. This means I like to play these games in a way where I refrain from ever being spotted and avoid killing. For this game, the clean hands part has been fully ignored. This is mostly due to the fact that the levels were really not built for it, at least not on an initial playthrough. Perhaps in a New Game Plus run I would, but that's neither here nor there. Before moving on to the narrative, figured I'd give a quick rundown on the different kind of enemies you'll run into, as well as some of the basic mechanics we'll be using throughout the game. Don't worry, it'll be short as there isn't that much variety. First off, you have your stock standard guard. If he spots you, he shoots you. Next up, we have that, except he has a shield, meaning you can only kill him from behind. Considering this is a stealth game, this should literally never be an issue. After that, we have your basic guard, except he has a gas mask and night vision, meaning your smoke bombs aren't going to be useful, as well as any potential gas being equally ineffective. Then we have elite guards. These are actually a tad bit more interesting. These guys require you to actually do something extra to take them out. Essentially, you gotta find a way to stun them, then you can sneak up behind them to finish them off. Oftentimes, unless you're carrying a specific tool, you actually do not have the means to stun these guys. Therefore, you cannot eliminate intimidate them. It's actually really cool. It does a good job at making these guys specifically feel like a genuine threat. The last enemy group is known as Stalkers. These are just elite guards, except they have an aura around them that can detect you if you breach it. They're cool, and I actually like their design. On to the gameplay loop. There isn't much we haven't already discussed, but I figured it was worth going over in its own mini section real quick. The first thing to note is the darkness mechanic. This is self-explanatory. If you stand in darkness, you can't be seen. Same goes for hiding places. If you press the hide button in a hiding area, you are effectively invisible. Amazing. The next actual interesting mechanic is the bamboo dart. This is a tool that is neither considered distraction or attack, and one you simply have access to at all times. It can be used to smash light, break electrical circuits, or even hit guards with it to gain their attention. And while this is not exclusive to the darts, this is worth going over because it is the most relevant with them. As you hold down the aim button, control on PC in this instance, you actually stop time, giving you plenty of space to aim. This is especially useful for the darts because you can throw up to 3 of them at the same time. And last, but certainly not least, we have the grappling hook. It is a grappling hook. You've seen these before in other video games, and it is just as fun to use here as it is anywhere else. Big fan. You can also dangle from the hook if you're on a specific platform, which has its uses, but not something I find myself abusing. The last thing we'll discuss before moving on to the narrative is the game's scoring system. Essentially, the better you play, the more points you get, which is also why I do not recommend bothering with clean hands on an initial playthrough, because while yes, you do get a decent amount of points for avoiding kills, you can get far more points by being bloodthirsty and hiding the bodies than the measly 5,000 points you get from being a good Christian boy. Why should you care about points? Look at this here end screen. See these marks? These are what you use to purchase your tools and your upgrades. This also applies to your little side quest here in the corner, as well as the scrolls you can find throughout the levels. Essentially, the better you play, the more points you get, the more tools at your disposal in future playthroughs and future levels. With 2 exceptions, I was able to max out my marks on the first attempt through a level when I took my time to explore every nook and cranny, killing guards as I went and never getting caught. There is one level I'll discuss later where I had to play through it like 3 times and really farm out points, but that's for later. For now, I've stalled long enough. Let's move on to the narrative. The story opens up, and let's just take a moment to appreciate the amazing animated cutscenes. They're typically fairly short for budgetary reasons, I'm assuming, but it was genuinely nice to see, and I can absolutely appreciate the work and dedication that went into making these. As for what is actually happening, the opening scene shows a ninja, our ninja, hopping around, killing guards, and getting some sick tattoos in what I assume is the original method, which seems absolutely horrible. As a fine young man, I have not a single tattoo on my body, so I don't know, people with ink, please let me know. How do you think this would compare to how you've had it done? Genuinely curious. From there, it seems that was either a dream or hallucination, and as we wake up...
Hey, you.
Finally awake.
Anyway, this is our ninja waifu. One second. Aura? I don't believe her name is ever stated in-game, or if it was, I missed it, but she is our helper throughout the adventure, essentially because we're forced to play as a silent protagonist. Yay, I love silent protagonist. I know you can't see me, but I would like to make it known the word love was said with the largest air quotes I cared to muster. They made an entire secondary character whose entire role is to be the protagonist mouthpiece. Guys, I feel like there was a very simple solution to your issue here. If you wanted a character whose role was to react to the narrative and events around them, you didn't have to make an entire character just for that. You had one right here. It's fine, whatever, back on track. The clan is under attack, and with no sword in hand, our only choice is to avoid these men for now. Thankfully, it doesn't take long before our trusted blade is in our hands, and with this...
Good work. But remember...
much better. From here, the rest of the mission is simple. We just need to make our way through, saving a few clan members along the way until we find the leader of our outfit currently getting his world rocked by a few of the armed goons currently infesting the hideout, along with someone who we should probably maybe consider as being important. Not really, he's not that relevant, but the game sure wants you to think he is because they gave him a unique design and an Australian accent.
It was an accident and it gets no bitches. Abysmal existence, RNG.
Just clear the two guys beating the stuffing out of his eye, that's the clan leader's name by the way, untie him, and congratulations, we've completed our first mission. As we gather the rest of the boys, we come to one conclusion. This means war, and thanks to the tattoos adorning our body, we've become the perfect weapon to teach these bastards what happens when you mess with daddy's kitten. Why did I write that? Normally I go through every mission of a game and describe in detail what happens, but truthfully there isn't much to go over in this section of the story. The most interesting part at this point is the origin of the ink that's used to make our tattoos, namely that they do seem to give some superhuman-esque abilities, but it comes at the cost of a deteriorating mental state, essentially meaning when a champion is chosen to bear the marks, it is to complete a specific task, and then, once done, they are then expected to take their own life before their mental state has degraded too far and they've become a threat to the clan they swore to protect. So as a result, we're just going to speedrun this section because nothing interesting happens. Essentially, we're going to track down the leader of the private military that attacked our hideout. We find the guy, lose the guy, kill the Aussie from earlier, until eventually we corner the evil CEO guy and put an end to him. With that, you have successfully completed 75% of the game. No, I'm not joking, and there is genuinely not really anything worth mentioning other than what I've already told you. Am I supposed to talk about the time we had to crawl into the sewers? Nothing of note happens here. We just go through the sewers. From a game's perspective, there's nothing wrong with this part, but from a narrative perspective, I legitimately have nothing to talk about. Well, it does get a bit better once we've taken care of... what was his name again? Oh right, Karajan. Once we've taken care of Karajan, we head back to the clan hideout, our duty fulfilled, prepare to end our lives in the pursuit of our clan's safety. But something's wrong. As we start to descend, we find guns, armor, tools of the enemy. Suddenly, it seems a lot less like we were on a mission to protect the clan, and much more like we were a distraction so everyone else could go and steal their weapons. Worse yet, this technology goes against the entire point of the clan. They secluded themselves away from society to maintain their way of life, to remain true to their roots. This technology goes against everything they've ever stood for, and so when given the opportunity to perform ritual Sudoku, we instead choose to flee. Quick pause, sorry to interrupt the flow, I just want to take a moment to talk about the voice acting.
Stop him. He must not get away.
It's a mixed bag. I'm sorry, I really didn't have a good place to put this, and it really dampens this otherwise dramatic moment. Once we've managed to give the clan the slip, we decide to try and find Dosan. He's the old man we've seen a couple of times throughout the game, the one that has given us the tattoos. We track him down to the desert, the origin of the special ink, as we traverse through the harsh climate and several booby traps. We find our man locked up with his tools stolen. Turns out the bandits who had been supplying our clan with the ink have decided to turn and want to know Dosan's secret to making the ink work. I guess the actual tattoos themselves we're given are important. I had always assumed just using the ink itself was the secret, but apparently not. So now it's our job to sneak around, grab the key to get him out, the ink, and his tools. With that, we can head back to Dosan, who reveals to us that the flowers used to create the ink are dead and have been dead for well over a year. It's here that Asai's actions start to fall into place. The clan has relied on this ink and the power it has provided for generations, but as there is no source for the ink anymore, that means it wouldn't be long before the clan fell apart. This is also foreshadowed earlier in the game, which is pretty cool. Earlier, Dosan Dosan complains about the freshness of the ink as he tattoos our character, complaining that the ink is old and clumping, despite him asking Azai for a fresh batch. It's honestly pretty cool in hindsight. This also explains the desperate need for technology. Despite the fact it does go against the clan's teaching and traditional beliefs, the modern world requires adaptation, and with no access to the thing that has kept the clan alive all these years, something had to be done lest they faced inevitable extinction. Dosan and Aura seem adamant that Azai must be stopped, however, and so, with no other option, I guess, Dosan, right here and now, decides it's time to give us the final mark. Just as he finishes up his work, we're ambushed by the clan, and while we manage to escape, unfortunately Dosan does get caught in the fire. Laying him to rest, there's nothing to do but escape the desert and confront Azai. Taking a quick break to mention that this is probably the worst level in the entire game. Like, I legit do not think you can actually get max score without farming kills. I had to run this level 3 times, with my third run having me going out of my way to absolutely murder everyone, even characters that weren't directly in my way. Good God, it was annoying. As to actual relevant mentions, sorry, just wanted to rant for a bit. This does also unlock the only costume I find worth using. This is the Path of the Mark, granting us the Mark of Serenity, the thing Dosan died for. This mark is essentially just Blink from Dishonored, and just like Blink, it is incredibly useful and low-key kind of busted. It does come at the cost of no longer being able to equip a distraction item. Goodbye, my sweet prince. But the ability to teleport is one of the greatest superpowers in any video game ever, so the trade-off is incredibly worth it. Traversing through the subways, we eventually arrive at our old clan home, but we don't have much time. It seems the tales of the mental degradation are true, and we start to suffer from hallucinations, and according to Aura, despite the guns not being real, if you believe you're shot, then your body will react as if it was. After tearing through the clan hideout, it's time we confront Azai about what this is all about. Spoiler warning, I guess. There's not a lot here worth the spoiler warning, but I figured I'd give one anyway in case you wanted to save the big showdown for your own playthrough. So if you do care, feel free to skip to the next section. Okay, that's long enough. If you're still here, I'll assume that you're fine with spoilers. Confronting Azai in his garden, we're forced to face the truth of the situation.
You risked our lives and our clan, all to hide your failure.
Who are you listening to? Have the hallucinations grown so strong? The voice you hear is temptation. It is trying to trick you, to turn you against us, to lead you into madness. You must not let it.
If I had a nickel for every time it turned out my hot ninja wife wasn't real, I'd have 2 nickels right now. So this puts all of this in even more perspective. Maybe Azai should be killed for failing to maintain the ink that the clan relied on for generations, but to be honest with you, I don't think the clan had much longer left with or without the ink. The powers it granted were great, but it didn't take long before we started literally hallucinating, even discarding Aura. It's only been, what, a few weeks at best between mission 1 and the final mission, and we've already deteriorated to this point? It was never sustainable. But on the other hand, there is something to be said about maintaining the clan's way of life. Many people are no doubt here because they wanted an escape from modern society, a way out of the hustle and bustle of city life, and to embrace the traditional aspects of their culture, and this technology does spit in the face of that. Maybe there's something to be said about what Aura was talking about. Maybe the clan doesn't deserve to exist if it has to resort to this. It's at this point where there's a decision to be made. You can choose to either end Azai and truly embrace the madness of the ink, most likely going on to slaughter not only your clansmen, but countless others in your wake, or you can choose to put an end to the delusion, taking your own life like countless others before you. you, preserving your clan even if it's no longer the same clan you set out to protect. Either way, once your choice is made, the game ends. There is no definitive canon choice as far as I'm aware, so the fate of the clan and the protagonist is all up in the air. Me personally, I choose to believe in the honorable sacrifice ending because despite the fact Azai is far from perfect, I do think he made the best decisions he could given his circumstances. We're not done yet though, because we still have the DLC to go over. This is the special Tale from the Past Dosan's story. As you can no doubt tell from the name, this is a mission where we get to play as Dosan in his younger days. The narrative is simple. The bandits that are in charge of taking care of the plant that is responsible for the clan's magical ink have decided to tell us to go fuck ourselves, so the clan sends Dosan to set them straight. The real neat part though is the gameplay. First off, we do not have the magical tattoos we do in the base game. This essentially means that you have no time stop when you're focusing, as well as no Batman Arkham vision, which I now realize I forgot to go over earlier. Okay, so later in the story, we unlock an ability called Farsight. You've seen this in a dozen other games like Dishonored, Styx, and yes, the Batman Arkham games. You can use it to see what certain electronics are connected to and where any nearby guards are, even through the walls. None of that matters though, because Dosan doesn't have that ability. What he does have are his mad guns, of which he is so proud of, he actively refuses to carry around a sword, which is actual Chad energy. This means we can't outright kill people, but we can give them the Batman classic. Beat the ever-loving shit out of our enemies, giving them broken bones, internal bleeding, and then leaving them laid out without any medical attention. I love being merciful. That's not to say you can't kill your enemies here, but you gotta be a little more creative about it. One of my favorites is just throwing people down and making them die to fall damage. I don't know why, I just found this very entertaining. Also, we're given access to a couple of unique tools. Firstly, we gain the distraction tool, the Dusk Moths. These are actually really neat. You can throw them at a light source to turn the area dark without making any noise, but it does come at the cost of only being temporary. However, one neat aspect of this is that they actually spread to other nearby light sources too, rather than just a single light bulb. You can also just throw them at a guard directly to confuse and distract them for a moment. It's a pretty neat tool, not something I'd pick over the smoke bomb, but certainly one that has its uses. Secondly, we gain the attack item Fungal Spores. This is easily one of the coolest attack items in the game. You throw it at a guard and they die. However, their body remains infected with the spores. Any other guards who happen to come into contact with the corpse will then contract the spores themselves. Also, as the guards die in this domino effect, other guards around them will become terrorized. Honestly, something I'd probably try using in a New Game Plus run. Anyways, the level itself is cool, easily the longest in the game. There's not much to go over. You go into one building, set off a bunch of traps that actually screw you over more than the enemies, which is very silly. And then in the second building, you can either kill every guard in a bloodthirsty rampage or scare the shit out of 5 of them in some epic pranks. Either way, it sends a message to the bandits to get their shit together. Once his task is complete, Dosan decides that he'd rather spend his life studying the ink, and from there, we can now use the Path of Wisdom costume in the main game. So if you liked how Dosan played, you can now do that in regular missions, which I think is pretty neat, and apparently this is one of the things they added in the remaster. Neat. So that's Mark of the Ninja. I think the game is really solid at the things that I find important in these kinds of games. Guards are meant to be taken seriously. The level design is extremely well made, and there are fun tools to use and abuse, and a beautiful art style that looks great even 14 years later. There are of course downsides. First and foremost is the narrative. It's fine, it gets the job done, but there isn't anything here I find that enticing. A lot of it is of course not helped by the fact we're stuck with a silent protagonist and an entire other character has to be made to fill his role. Still incredibly stupid to me, but at the end of the day, I'd rather a narrative exist for the excuse of having a game than the other way around. The other major problem I have with the game I have already gone over extensively, but it essentially boils down to the fact that we have this selection of cool tools I'd love to experiment more with, but not many good chances to actually use them. This is just due to the fact we can only carry one of each tool type unless you change costumes, but even then, the cost of most of the costumes is not worth what you get in exchange. Overall, despite the game's flaws, I do find this to be a great experience, and I'd rank it fairly highly on my list of stealth games. I doubt the game will ever get a sequel in this day and age, but I am happy that Clay Entertainment has moved on to bigger and better things with an extremely successful lineup, and I am glad that this game sort of paved the way for that. Good job, guys. This was pretty solid. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Still doing that giveaway for Arcane Season 1. If you want in, then remember to subscribe, doing it at 10K. Other than that, it's been fun, and I'm looking forward to playing Styx Blades of Greed when that releases, and I hope to see you there.